What do you want to be when you grow up? That's the question I heard all the time as a kid. It sent the message loud and clear that I needed to pick a career for myself. But why? Why are careers so important to us? And yet, 51% of women are stressed out on the job, and 59% of people are quietly quitting. Should we be thinking differently about our careers? I'm Terry Barton, and my goal is to help you navigate the issues and concerns you have today by bringing the Christian worldview into the conversation. Today, we're going to talk about careers. I think we women place a huge emphasis on careers, and sometimes we let our career rule over our lives. But why do we do that? Why are careers so important to us? When asked what was most important for having a fulfilled life, career scored higher than close friends, children, money, and marriage. In the 2023 Pew Research Center survey, 71% having a job or career that they enjoy was most important. So clearly, career matters. And enjoying the career is the goal. But what makes it enjoyable? According to 89% of Gen Z and 92% of millennials, having a sense of purpose is important to having job satisfaction. But 51% of women are stressed out, and 42% say their mental health is being negatively impacted by their job. Now, I can think of a lot of contributing factors for that. There can be tight deadlines that you're trying to meet. Maybe your boss doesn't like you, or you have toxic coworkers, or something about the job just doesn't fit within your lifestyle and doesn't give you a good work life balance. That's going to make enjoying your career difficult, and it can derail the idea of having a fulfilled life based solely on career. Many of us feel like our careers is a big part of our identity. In fact, 55% say a significant part of their identity comes from their job. But we're not our jobs. In fact, we're not even our careers, no matter how much we like them, no matter how much we're attached to them. Last week, we talked about identity and how we need to have a strong foundation to base a strong identity on. And careers are just not that. I mean, jobs can change, careers can change. You can lose a job, you can change careers. And when those kind of disruptions happen, what does that do to your identity if it's based completely on your career? This is something we need to be realistic about. I mean, 59% of people say that they're quietly quitting their job as it is. So clearly, there is a bit of a disconnect between the idea that what our career is has a lot to do with what our identity is. I think a lot of us are struggling with having a fulfilling life based solely on our careers. And we're struggling with having our identity based on a career that we don't enjoy or a career that changes on us. So maybe we should make a mental shift and think of our careers, our jobs, another way. So let me tell you my story so you see what I mean. When I was growing up, when I was very, very young, I was asked, what did I want to be when I grew up? Because when I was little in the 80s, it was very common for us girls to be asked this question. We were really starting to get pushed with the idea that we should have a career, that we should have some sort of job that defines us, and something, quite honestly, something to do outside of the home versus staying at home and just being mothers or just keeping a house or whatever. We were really pushed to have careers. So from a very young age, I wanted to be, as I called it, an animal doctor. I wanted to go into veterinary medicine. I loved animals. I loved playing with animals more than I loved baby dolls or any kind of girly girl things. Um, so I did. I went into veterinary medicine. I found as I got older that I didn't really like school. So I went a shorter route and I did an associate's degree in veterinary technology. So my first foray after college was as a vet tech. And I did that for many years. And eventually I saw how a person could be in the field and be more than just a veterinary technician. Um, I saw that there was a way that you could become a practice manager with a background in veterinary technology like I had, and with all the experience that I was gaining just working in the field. And so that was my goal. My goal then became I'm going to manage a veterinary hospital, and it's going to be one of the best veterinary hospitals that I can make it be. And this was great. This was great because um, it was all happening. College was happening while I was dating my then fiance, and we got married. And honestly, we never had any plans to have kids or anything like that. We said, nah, we don't really want to have kids. So it was going to be super easy. No kind of competition for my time, really. And that meant I could just focus on, having the career, and I could totally be a manager and work all the hours it took, and just have that whole career ahead of me. And so that was my focus, work my way up to a manager position, and just keep doing that until I retire. That's what I thought. And so in a lot of ways, the career was something that I thought would help me have a fulfilled life. That achieving that goal of being a manager was going to help me achieve fulfillment. It was giving me a purpose for the job and for what I was pursuing. And in a very, very real sense, being a veterinary technician and being in the field of veterinary medicine was a huge part of my identity. Um, I was always really proud to say that I was a veterinary technician or that I was a veterinary practice manager. These were all things that were just a huge part of who I was and what I was all about. And some of that started to change. I did have a kid. We eventually decided we wanted to have kids, and then one sort of surprised us a little earlier than we anticipated. And I was still able to work with the kid. Um, I had a really good boss, and so things worked out very, very well. I was already managing at the time, and we were able to adjust my schedule, and so I could, have time for being a mom and have time for being a manager, and so life went on, and eventually I came to a point where part of what I needed to do as a manager became too much. Um, Years later, I was managing at another hospital, and doing the human resources element of it was really difficult at that time. I started to realize that I sort of took on other people's emotions, and the way that they saw things was starting to have an impact on me, a negative impact, actually. And it was sort of bringing me down. There was a lot of negativity that was starting to come into the field in general. And I was seeing some of it in the hospital that I was in as well. So it just became a lot. And I had already been through one burnout, and I was essentially going into another, and decided that managing was not a good fit for me, at least not anymore. And so I didn't want to manage anymore. And at that point, I thought, well, veterinary medicine is a very physical field. A lot of people don't think about it, but as a technician, you might be lifting 60-pound dogs onto a table. You're having to restrain animals who, weigh half as much, or half as much as you, and they're putting up a fight sometimes, and it can be really hard on the body. And I was already starting to have some plantar fasciitis in my feet from being on my feet so much, being on my feet all day long, actually. Um, and so I needed to really consider if this was something I could actually do until I retired. Um, if you're trying to still do a job that's that physical when you're 70, it could be really hard. And, managing was going to be my way to stay in the field until I could retire. So I had to really take a look at it and say, can I realistically stay with this that long? and I just didn't feel like I could. And so I started looking at other options. Actually went back to school and got a bachelor's degree in a completely different field, something where I could go into a new job, a new career, and actually not be on my feet. And so that was a pivotal point, because when your career has been a part of your identity for so long and you are going a completely different way, you start to wonder who you are. You start to really wonder who you are, what you're about, how do you describe yourself to people at that point. So, doing the career change uh, became it became another moment where I had to really say, is how I'm thinking about my career, healthy? Maybe I just need to have a different mindset about it. And this is where I want to introduce to you into this topic of careers a Christian worldview. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, doesn't the Bible say that women are just supposed to stay home and be barefoot and pregnant? Their only job is to have kids and take care of the family? Well, not exactly. Let's look at Proverbs 31 and see what that has to tell us. Proverbs 31, starting with verse 10, says, an excellent wife who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it, and the fruit of her hands, with the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. So we see in this Proverbs 31, we see several things about this woman. First of all, she does a lot of work at home, but she's not solely at home. In verse 13, it says she seeks wool and flax. So she has to go and find these materials that she needs. And in verse 14, it says she brings her food from afar. So not all the food that she's providing to her household is actually something that she has either in her house or on her land. She also goes out of the house some distance to go and get what she needs to feed her family. And verse 15, it says, she rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household. So she's at home, she's getting up before the sun comes up to cook food for the family. So, yeah, she's doing a whole lot of work at home. In verse 21, she clothes her household. So she's making clothes for her family at home. It says she makes bed coverings. So clearly she's got all this work that she needs to do at home and she gets it done. The other thing we notice about her is that she's very entrepreneurial. So in verse 16, remember it says she considers a field and buys it. And with the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. So This is probably not a piece of land that's right next door to her house, not next door to the property that she already has, but it's probably still close enough that she can easily get to it on a regular basis. In verse 18, she perceives her merchandise as profitable. So she's making all this stuff. Some of it is possibly extra. She's made all these things for her household, for her family, and for the people who work there. And the extra she realizes she can sell. She may also just be making other things and realize she can sell those things as well. And then in verse 24, it says she makes linen garments and sells them, and she delivers sashes to the merchant. So she has found that these things she knows how to make are things that she can turn around and make a profit on. And so she does it. Now, another thing to notice is, why does she work? She does a lot of work that's for her household. In verse 12, remember it says, it's talking about her husband. It says that she does him good and not harm. So she's doing a lot of this to help her husband, to help him, to support him so that when he goes off and does whatever job he has, that he doesn't have to worry about what's happening at home. We also see in verse 21 that the household is clothed. They're all clothed in scarlet. So she's making sure that she's provided clothing for the household. And in verse 27, it says she looks well to the ways of her household. So obviously she's got a huge focus going on for her family and all of those who are living in and working around the house. The other thing we notice as a reason why she works is she does it also to help others. So once she's taken care of everything for the family, she can take that extra that exists and she can give it away. She can give it to charity and help other people. In verse 20, it says she opens her hand to the poor and she reaches out her hands to the needy. So she's able to give to the poor, but she's doing this after she makes sure she takes care of her family first. Now, there's some results that she gets from all of her work that she's doing. With this focus that she has on her family, she is getting trust from her husband. In verse 11, it says, the heart of her husband trusts in her. So she's done all this. He trusts her. It also says he will have no lack of gain. So he has everything that he needs. All of his needs are taken care of as well. And the entire household is provided for. We see that throughout the entire passage. And of course, she has more than what the family needs. She's made more than what they need. And so, because of that, she's able to give it away to charity, where she, in verse 20, where she reaches out her hands to the needy. Because, because she's done all of these things, she has the bandwidth to actually be able to help other people too. And then we see in verse 23, it mentions that her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. Well, see, her reputation as a good manager of the household, as a mother who takes care of the family and does a really good job with it, her reputation helps his reputation. In verse 28, we see her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. So she is getting, as a result of all her hard work, praises and blessings from her children. There's nothing like hearing your kids say, hey, mom, I understand why you did this thing. For them to come around and tell you that you did right by them and that they appreciate what you did. I mean, there's kind of nothing like that. And then the husband is praising her too, because he sees how much she loves him and how much she loves the family and how much she's doing to care for all of them. And so he's praising her, saying, she's done a great job and she's done better than everyone else in his eyes. So, what we see here is that she does a lot of work at home, but she also goes out and does work outside the home. She's got that field that she bought, and so she's going to have that vineyard planted, and she's going to have to take care of that. She goes to all these merchants to sell products that she's made. Obviously, with the field, she'll eventually have to sell either the grapes or the wine or whatever in the market or to the merchants. And her focus, her reason for all of this work is to take care of her family. She's seeking the better thing. Her family being taken care of, having everything they need, that's what is most important to her. It's not important to her that she has a field and has a vineyard and makes wine or whatever for the sake of making wine. That's not what's most important to her. She does even that element because she wants to take care of her family. So what we see is she's not focused on having a career, having a job, or all this work she's doing as some sort of way of defining her identity or of giving her fulfillment in life. What is interesting, though, is that she actually does get some indirect fulfillment from the job. It's not the job itself that gives it to her. It's not all this work she's doing that gives her the fulfillment so much, but it actually comes from how her children, how her husband, what they think of her, and how they treat her, how they will praise her and they bless her um, and appreciate everything she's done. I'm not saying it's wrong to have a career. I am saying that our focus is what matters most. Why are we doing the thing that we're doing? Careers change. Job loss is real. At work, we're replaceable, but at home, we're not. When I left veterinary medicine and I was no longer a manager, another manager came in and took over. It didn't matter that I was there. But if I were no longer at home when my kid was little, that would have mattered a great deal. So we have to focus on why we're doing the thing that we're doing. So maybe you're thinking, well, I'm single. I'm not married. I don't have kids. So this doesn't really sound like it applies to me. It doesn't apply to you right now, but it might one day. So in the meantime, go for it. Go to college, get the degree, go after that career, that job you want to have, but keep your future in mind. Think about how you look at that career and that job and how it will either do positive things for you in the future or how it may hold you back and make your life possibly even a little bit miserable if you put too much importance on it and you don't focus on things that perhaps actually are more important, like family and kids, or even other relationships in your life. Where our focus is probably really what's going to matter the most when it comes to us having a fulfilled life and knowing who we really are. So, this conversation about careers is going to continue into next week because I can't talk about careers without talking about kids and careers. Remember when I was telling you my story, how we didn't intend to have kids and then we changed our mind that we wanted to have a kid and then we did have a kid. So that definitely had an impact on how I felt about things at that time in my life. And so next week, I'm going to share more of my story about what I was thinking and what I was feeling when my kid was 3 years old and I was trying to hold down a job at the same time. So be sure to tune into that next week. And if you have any topics you would like to have discussed on this channel, please drop them in the comments. I'll take a look at those and see if that's something we can do in the future. And until then, see you next time.